See, she just said close to me. What did you have in the script?
Which one?
Caps.
She has 126 caps. What did you put in above it?
Coming from my record.
No chance.
Please welcome the absolute legend, the one and only Lucy Bronze, MBE. Lucy, thank you for having a little sit down with me. Guys, we should have had a little noise. Yeah. I mean, trying to get Lucy on the pod has been tough, right? Been playing out of the country for so long, and because she's now finally around the corner, I got lucky with her. But Luce, I have to start with, right, because I was doing a little bit of research, and your name come up, your full name, Lucia Roberta, is that right?
Yeah.
Tough Bronze. I mean, Tough is the perfect name for you, but I, honest to God,
I
didn't realise that was even. Why have I never known that? I mean, it's perfect for you, but
I mean,
who give you that? Mum, dad?
Lucia's Portuguese.
Portuguese.
Roberta's Portuguese. Tough's my mum's maiden name, and then Bronze is my dad's name.
Ah, makes sense now.
Yeah, it's
I
not
was
just...
like, nah. I thought she just put it in there because she's like one of the toughest players. I was like, you know what it's like, and I was like, yeah. Well, anyway, yeah, tough. Luce, let's get started. You describe yourself as a shy kid. Have you always been shy or mad about football? Kind of talk to me about your journey into football, that shy kid that kind of stepped into the football world.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was always very awkward and shy, difficult to speak to people, even at school. And I loved sport. I loved football, but I loved all sports.
Don't we know it? Your mum loves to tell us.
Well, my mum loves to talk. Yeah, and football was like the one that my brother probably was into the most. So then I was into that. I think it was the only way I found like I could speak to people or had a connection with people. Because if I didn't play football, I would just sit, well, you know, when I joined Everton, I would just sit like a mute, like I wouldn't speak. I didn't know. But as soon as it was football, it was like I was a different person. It's
mad, isn't it? Like I feel that like with football, people think I'm loud and I am. And when it comes to football, I feel like for whatever reason it is, I'm just able to connect and have a conversation.
And confident
outside of that,
as well.
yeah. And outside of that, talking to people, meeting people,
it's like
I actually feel like myself. I get anxiety. I'm like, I don't want to meet this new person. I feel shy, and people are like, you're not shy, and I'm like, that's because you only know me inside of football, where I'm comfortable.
Or you've found a way to just cope with it. Whereas in football, you just
honestly, it's like it's the worst thing. But you talk about sports, right? So I mean, I know we're bantering a little bit about your mum, but your brother, athletics was one of the sports that you did.
Football.
My
sister did a lot of
your sister.
athletics.
Sorry, it was your sister, wasn't it? Who did that, and the brother did football. Do you reckon that's where you got your competitiveness? Just your brother?
I think my sister.
But you love flipping running and fitness, and is that not from your sister?
Yeah, but my sister's a lot younger than me, so it wasn't like a fair battle.
Was she competitive with you?
Yeah.
So you're competitive with your brother, and she's competitive with you?
My brother was competitive with both of us. He would never let us win. Imagine, my brother's 2 years older than me. He refused to let me win, but I didn't like it if he did let me win.
Okay, so I get that. And my brothers were like that. We used to play 2v1 though, because I'm only 1 year older than my little brother. Yeah. And my big brother, I think, is 4 years older. So me and my little brother against him. We'd still lose, but we tried. But yeah, I mean, I guess having brothers, sisters that are into sport kind of helps that part of it.
Especially the same age, or like that are a little bit stronger, or you've got to try harder.
Try a little bit harder. And was you little?
I mean, my brother was bigger than me.
Yeah.
I wasn't little for a girl. Like, I've been this size since I was like 16.
I meant when you were little.
But even when I was little, I think I was bigger than most girls. But that's when I played with my brother and his mates.
Okay, you felt
and my brother, as much as he always beat me, he would take me to football.
Yeah.
And he would be like, oh, Lucy's on my team. He wasn't embarrassed about me or anything. Whereas a lot of big brothers probably would be.
100% they were.
So yeah, it was competitive, but I knew he still wanted me there.
They wanted you there. So we'll talk about your brother. Obviously, because of your brother, that's probably the reason you play football. So in terms of teams you played for, challenges into kind of getting into those teams, were there girls' teams around? Did you play with your brother's team? How did that work in terms of getting into a team at a young age?
I played my brother's team mostly, played at school until I was 12. The only other, I met Lucy Staniforth when I was 10, 11 years old. She moved onto the same street as me.
Okay.
So I lived at number 13 and she was number 20.
Unlucky for some, 13, but
unlucky
not for you.
Some, not
for you.
Yeah, so then she was the only other girl that I knew played football. So we played together and we joined Blythe Town, which is a girls' team. It was an hour away from where we lived.
Yeah, you lot live
Far.
north, isn't
Yeah,
it?
there wasn't a girls' team, so that was the closest one. So we went together. But it was lucky that back then it was really lucky.
And so
I went with
what
Lucy
age was it then? What age did you start in a girls' team?
when I turned 12.
Oh, so what, under 12s? So late then, right? In terms of team competitive football. Was that the earliest you played competitive football?
I played in boys' competitive
Until
league.
12?
Until
and then
12.
found a girls' team.
Yeah.
Do you think that helped you, playing with boys younger age? Like, we all talk about it, but like, do you actually think it's like something that should be pushed for? Because you know they do the mixed league now. Do you think that's a good thing, or?
I think the mixed league's good. I think if you're good enough to play with the people around you, it's not necessarily whether if it's a boy or a girl. If they're better than you or at their higher level, then why would you not play with them? Like, mine probably would be all boys because girls didn't play.
Yeah.
So
yours would be all boys because you're competitive and girls aren't at that early ages.
Yeah.
Like, I always find, like, I always found, like, I'm not that competitive. I'm competitive, but I'm not competitive because I always compare myself to you and you're just like competitive. But I'm saying, like, girls aren't naturally competitive from young age. Like, when I coach at the Centre of Excellence,
you're not allowed. You're
for example,
like supposed to be though. Yeah, that's why.
So is that why you preferred boys, because of that bit of competition?
Yeah, I love
Where
it.
does that come from? Where does that like competition in you or drive or whatever?
My whole family's like that though. Even with like, we play games at Christmas and it's like, it's a lot. Like,
Yeah, kind of.
yeah,
Luce,
I'm like that with my niece and nephew now.
Are you? So it just carries all the way through.
Yeah.
Lucy, you're competitive. Like, honestly, when people say, what's Luce like the only thing that naturally just comes to mind, like, is how, like, if it was to drink the quickest, if it was to eat, I don't know, an apple, but
I
like,
think I've mellowed
you
out a
would,
little bit.
have you?
Yeah, I've had to.
How? Why?
Because people couldn't keep up.
People get upset
Yeah,
losing.
people get upset losing. Yeah, I got one of the England managers once was like, you maybe need to bring people along with you instead of like just beating
Leave
them
them
down.
behind.
Yeah.
Mate, you got to leave them behind. They either lift their standards and come with you, or they get left behind. So let's talk about, we obviously you was at Sunderland, you moved to Everton, from Everton, Liverpool, Man City. But what I want to know is it that competitiveness in you that made you want to move abroad and go and sign for Lyon? Did you think that you'd done everything here in England, or was it that bit of added competition?
I think it was wanting to win, and
I mean,
I
you
think
did that
it
at
was,
Liverpool and City, but yeah.
Yeah,
and Everton.
Like I think to like win, like to be the best. I've always been obsessed, but I think also being like in that environment with other players like that I match the environment that I'm in.
Yeah.
Like I'm not the most talented player, but I can copy you and I can adapt to any team that I'm put in. So if I'm in a team that's a higher level, like when I went to Lyon, my level went. I was just like, I didn't even think I was capable of what I did.
You are capable.
Yeah,
you always put yourself down in terms. You always say, whenever I hear you talk about an you're like, I'm not the most technically. You are. You're gifted.
I don't think that's my gift
gifted.
though. Like my gift is like my mentality and my physicality, and I've worked hard to be more talented technically and tactically. But that's like, I've got it in me, but I've just had to work on it a bit more.
To get it out.
Yeah, which had to be in those environments to do, which is why I constantly change environments, like always a challenge.
So in terms of those challenges, which challenge was more difficult? Moving to France, who signing for Lyon, who at the time were like, when you talk about Champions League football, were like absolutely dominant, or then moving to Barcelona where there was a kind of, I don't know, expectation of them to try and win a Champions League. So you've gone to Lyon and the expectation is they're going to do it anyway, right? But then Barcelona were trying to do that and they lost the season before you went.
Yeah, season.
The season before you went. Barca lost the season before you went. So what was that? Was that a challenge that I'm going to go and make this team better? Show them kind of what it takes to win a Champions League? Like what was...
I think like going to Lyon was like, I want to win the Champions League. So it was like, if I don't do this with this team, like... I've put a lot of pressure on myself. Okay. Whereas going to Barca wasn't that kind of pressure. But I think even if you went to Barca now and they're back-to-back winners, I think it's the hardest team to go to.
For what reason?
I think like you have to fit their style. Okay. Like it's hard. You can't change Barca and their ways of doing things and their way of thinking. Like, and they're so traditional in everything, not even just the way they play, like in the way their thought processes and how things are organised, like the language. There's 2 languages there. Like,
yeah,
like
Catalan and...
Yeah, I think that's something that me and Kira both spoke about, being like 2 foreign players there. Even though we were playing so well and big players, it was it's so hard to play for Barcelona. It's not an easy thing to do.
So did you have to adapt things that you did in order to kind of
100%.
fit in?
I think at Lyon...
What were the main like adaptations you had to make as a player?
I think I had to take away from my game to add to the team's game. Like when people think of me and they're like, oh, an attacking fullback.
Yeah.
Hanson's in front of me.
Yeah.
So it was like, let her do what she needs to do. So I would have to take my game away and be like, what space am I filling in the team? Not like on the pitch as in like, what does the team need from me? So like me and Paredes, it was like, you just have to defend. So my best game...
And your defending is on the front foot, so not being a little bit...
So then my best game though was like the Champions League final.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, oh, she played so well. But in the season, I wasn't always like that. And I was like, because my game isn't that for Barca.
Yeah.
Because everybody else is attacking, even though you see me as an attacking fullback for England. Yeah. I had to change my game completely to fit Barca's style. That was hard.
I can imagine. I mean, that's what I think when I think about the teams I've signed for, like Arsenal being one. Like it wasn't even so much changing my style when I went there. It was more about my character. So my character had to change to fit in the manager and his thought process. And he was a Spanish coach, and mate, they're very like.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm like? I'm not the most serious person. Like I'm just like to have a joke and mess around, my cup of tea. He wasn't having none of that. Like he found it really bizarre that before the game on a match day, I'm just sitting outside with a cup of tea and come into the dressing room really late and get changed 5 minutes before like the warm-up. Yeah. He couldn't take to that. So he found that really unprofessional of me to do that. But what my thing to him was is that I've been doing it for like, I was 30 when I signed for Arsenal, for at least 20 years or however long, 10 years. I'm not going to change now. I mean, what's a cup of tea going to do? Sitting outside having a cup of tea? So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have been able to adapt my in-game stuff. Maybe tactically, but in terms of like my strengths, if it took most of my good attributes away,
it's hard.
Trying to, adapt to that. Do you reckon that, do you reckon that's why, because I don't want to say Kira's struggling, but I feel like she's struggling when she comes back to England from Barca.
I think it's...
So I reckon like she's struggling in camp. Do you reckon that's a part because she's losing a bit of her kind of game? Because I feel like, you think of her at Man City in England, she was heavily involved in most things.
But I think also like at Barca, like the players think completely... I remember Serena came to the Barca game once and she was like, I think it's the first women's football game where every single 11 players, including the goalkeeper, are like checking the shoulder the whole time. Whereas normally you think like a player like you, like the midfielders, they're the ones doing it and the wingers are just running and the fullbacks are just running.
Straight lines.
And she was like, everybody's like that. Like it's a completely different way of thinking. So then to keep changing between is like, I think it's hard if then England's style is so different and the players have such, like the league's so different in England. The way of thinking is so different in England.
100%.
Like,
is that why you stayed then longer at Lyon than Barcelona? Is that because you settled there? Because you look comfortable. I'm not saying you didn't look comfortable at Barca, but you were like comfortable at Lyon. Like, and as you say, playing like your best football.
Lyon's style was, we'll get the 11 best players in the world and chuck them on the pitch and they'll figure it out. And we did. And it was like, you just had to figure out what's she good at, what am I good at, how do we do that together?
Yeah.
Instead of like, there's a specific style, like Barca, there's tiki-taka, we play through midfield, we go to three at the back, you do this. Whereas at Lyon...
Is there a lot of info then there?
Yeah. Well, the manager now is the assistant from before, so I know him really well. But Jonah, who was there before, like, proper like mini Pep, like...
Really?
All in Spanish.
Overload of info.
Like, yeah.
And we thought Hope was bad in her meetings.
No, he was like this, with moving the counters, and you just had to keep up with it.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So you have to just take all like this information in constantly.
Crazy. So you've moved back to Chelsea, 5 Champions Leagues, 2 different clubs. You're going for your 6th with 3 different clubs. I mean, I know there's a little bit of competition there. You and Seedorf, the only guy or only footballer currently to have won Champions League with 3 different clubs. But he's won only 4 Champions Leagues. So you've won more than him
a little bit.
But you can, if you do
I'll
that,
set
then
the record.
Well, you better win a couple with Chelsea. That's why I was hoping you come back.
That's why I'm.
But is that one of the reasons why you come back to Chelsea? Was that a motivation? One cup they've never won. They've been desperate to win. You've won it. You can kind of share those experiences.
I think I've always previously come back to England, that was always a motivation of, I've won the Champions League abroad, like, come on, like,
can we do it in
an English team needs to do it. Like, we all keep talking about it and close and this, but are they really? Like, Chelsea's made one final in
how many years? Yeah.
20 years or something, I don't know. Like
What was it? Arsenal won it in '95, wasn't it?
It wasn't even called
But it
the
wasn't
Champions
even
League.
called the Champions League back then.
Exactly. So like
not
that's
even
how
called-
long ago it's been.
Yeah.
So I think that I've got such a pride of being an English player, playing for the Lionesses. Like I always have, but my personal goals of winning Champions League, I left to do that. But I definitely I just think it's the right time for an English team to.
And do you think they're the closest and probably
100%.
best prepared team to go and do that?
Best prepared, 100%, and closest because they've the experience of being in the final. I think they've beaten Barca, they've beaten Lyon on separate occasions. But you know what it was like at England. Like once
you do it, you
once,
can.
that's like done. You know how to do it. If you don't do it again on another day, it's not because that fear factor. It's just the day.
Yeah.
So I think whereas the other teams don't really have that either. And the main reason we got Chelsea was I had a conversation with Sonia.
Yeah, I read that in an interview. I listened to it in an interview. That was quite funny. Decision made.
Yeah.
What was it, a text or something? She said you come to Chelsea and you was like...
She spoke to me after the Champions League final, literally. We was walking around, like, I went,
good luck.
I actually know Cammy better, so I said to Cammy, you're going to love it in England, good luck in London. But it hadn't been announced that they were the Chelsea coaches. And she was like, oh yeah, like the kids are moving. Like we're talking like friends. Then Sonia came in the conversation and she said, I said, congratulations, whatever. And she was like, are you coming? And I was like, you don't need me. I said, Chelsea have got hundreds of players. She was like, no, if the door's open, I want you to come. And I said, well, it's always open. I don't know what I'm doing. I know I want to leave Barca, but I haven't got a plan.
Yeah.
She was like, right, will you coming? And then I texted her a few days later and was like, yeah, I want to come to Chelsea.
And then you just come and that was it?
And then it was like, yeah.
As quick as that?
Pretty much.
That's crazy. I mean, you know what? It had been rumoured to me, and it was funny because when I come to do the pitch at SGP, and I asked you, what are you coming? And you was being hush-hush. Someone had already told me that it's a done deal, right? But when you just completely forget that that's even been said to you, and I'm thinking, I'm sure that deal's been done. Yeah. And then you kept it a big secret from me, knowing because I'm the biggest Chelsea fan.
Because it was...
You know what? I was just so excited because I was thinking, if she's coming, I know that they're going to get closer to that Champions League. That's all I was thinking.
It was just a hush-hush because it was like I made a decision, but then I was on holiday and then I had to do a medical, but then I didn't have time for pictures. And then I was at England camp and I was going back and forth trying to like tick everything. Yeah. And they were like, don't tell anyone. And I was like, I don't really care as long as it's signed.
I know, yeah. I don't really care. Yeah. That's crazy. But you learnt the languages, right? You learnt both Spanish and French when you were there. Easy, hard? Which language more difficult?
French is more difficult to learn, but Spanish was more difficult because they all want to speak English and they all speak Catalan.
Oh, okay. Did it help you in learning a language when you played abroad?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Right, before we move on, Luce, to some England stuff, I want to know who, if you're prepared to answer, who's the best manager, coach you've worked under and why?
At England?
No, just in general. Just across like, and why, like for me, I always try and, when I think of the managers I've played with, who did I tick best under? Where did I get my best football? Why do I... when I look back now, I think, like loads of people say to me about who's your best manager, Hope, and blah, blah, blah. They all taught me different things. I wouldn't say I played my best football under Hope, for example. Like Beardy, like as much as he didn't really... You were there at Liverpool, he didn't coach me, but he just makes you feel a certain way that you feel like untouchable.
That was me with Phil Neville. Like, we went to the World Cup in 2019 and he was sat in interviews, press conferences every time. You might
as well been captain. I can't work out why you weren't captain under Phil.
Lucy Bronze is the best player in the world.
Yeah.
And I was like, go on then. Like, he didn't
teach me anything. Coach, did he? He didn't coach. Yeah, it's true.
He didn't teach me anything on the pitch. He didn't teach me anything as a person. Yeah. Apart from he said, I see you as a captain, so you need to do a bit more, which no one... Before that, I was in captains groups and everyone in the team knew I was a leader, but no one said it to me.
But you know what? On that, right? How often do you come across managers where, say you're the best player in the team or the most experienced or whatever, or you bring the best qualities in terms of people listen to you, or even they respond to your performances, doesn't have to say anything, but they won't give you the armband for what reason? Like how many times have you been in teams and it's like, mate, like you say all this to me, you'll publicly say it, but you won't put the armband on me. It's like, you don't need the armband to perform.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's just a nonsense. Career. Yeah, it's a nonsense reasoning to not give you that leadership role and be seen as a leader.
That's my whole career. But then I think I got to a point under Serena where it was like, do you know what? I actually feel better like showing the other players that isn't necessary.
Doesn't need it.
That's not necessary. Like if you were on the pitch at England right now I tell you, if someone needed to be changed, I'm doing it, or Kira's doing it. It doesn't have to be Leah, or it doesn't have to be Millie, or it doesn't have to be someone, but you can do it without that. I think in England especially, like, it's somehow, as soon as you wear that suddenly means that you're a different person. You've not changed. And if you then give it to me, I've not suddenly changed and you've got worse. Like, we're still both doing what we're doing. It's one person's opinion. Like, the manager picks, maybe they've got a good relationship with. Equally, like, does it really matter that much? Like, I think I got to a point where I was like,
I got to that, as you get older, I think you're just like, whatever.
Yeah, but everyone else, I think you're the same as me. Everyone else pushed you into it, and you kind of think, oh, then I should be. And then at the end of the day, you're like, I don't really care.
Don't really care. Like, you care, but you don't care. It's one of those. If you give it me, it's great. If you don't, it's kind of like,
I'm going to do the same thing anyway.
The same thing. I remember with Mark Sampson. I don't even know if you know the story, when I basically had to interview for the captain's armband with Steph. Interview for an armband. I had to tell him, look, I'm 30. Like, you know what, pick who you want to pick. And his reasoning to give it to Steph was she was a little bit younger and would be there for the duration of his contract. Well, I outdone his contract, so I potentially could have been. But it was one of them, I'm like, are we actually interviewing for an armband for your national team?
But that's what I mean, that's why I'm crazy. Like, would you have wanted to have got it that way?
Yeah, no, definitely not.
You would have rather, you would rather have the respect of the players knowing that they'd listen to you than one person say.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Right, Luce, let's talk a little bit about England. I don't think I've ever heard you say out loud, or any player, because I think it's hard when you're playing, what does it actually mean to represent England, the Lionesses?
I think it's changed. Like, I think when you first start, it's like a dream. And now it like represents so much more, especially at the minute. Like, and I think for me, it is like an honour. I know people always say it's an honour, but like, I'm so competitive and want to win, but I want to win for England. Like, I want to win a Champions League for an English club because it's English. Like, I want to win the Euros because it was in England. Like, that was so much more. I think playing for you, and especially a player like me as well, like, I change clubs. Like, all the time anyway, like, because I'm looking for different environments. England's the one like steady thing that I've always had. So it's like a long-term relationship that I can't get rid of. So it's like sometimes you're like, I don't want to be in this, but you work on it and you keep going, and like, and you step on the pitch and you absolutely love it. And sometimes it's hard work, but I wouldn't change it for the world. Mate, I actually love that description of it. It is. It's so true. Because it's your dream and it's what you want. There's times when you go there and you're so in love with playing, and then there's times when you go there, it's like, oh, I don't want to see you this time. I don't want to be in camp. But you can't admit it because you need to be there. Like, mate, that is a great description of representing. Oh, mate. But you know what I wanted to ask you about England? And maybe you can or you can't talk about it, but I feel like we're experiencing a little bit of a transition off the back of the winning the Euros in 2022. A little bit of a transition in terms of players coming in, kind of losing some of that experience. Would you see us in that kind of transition moment? Yeah, I think it was like, after the Euros, it was tough, obviously, because Beth and Leah both got injured as well. Then Millie missed a lot of the season, then Fran did as well. And they're all players who you looked in the Euros had big parts to play. Jill retired, like left a massive hole in the team. Ellen retired, massive hole in the team. Like, there were so many things, and it was kind of like, oh, let's rebirth it, and it just took so long to do. And then obviously you've got the players who've been there a long time, or like you're restarting a cycle. And yeah, I think after Euros anyway, it was always going to be tough because every player was unbelievable in that tournament. That's how we won. Yeah. Whereas now, if one player's not at it, you know, the whole team can't be as good as it was. Yeah, I feel like that's the most noticeable. When a player or two is not at it, it's more noticeable than, say, back in 2022 when you did win. But I think people forget that, though. Like, you know, all the other tournaments I've played in England, we didn't keep the same starting 11 for every single game. Yeah. Like, that's insane that we did that in the Euros. Like, it was the 11 that worked, keep going. But isn't that something we cried out for when we used to play for England? When we were there, I was like, mate, we need to build relationships. We need to kind of understand. And it works, but then when one person isn't there, or two people isn't there, two people like Mido and Leah, like... Yeah, the World Cup changed. And we have players who are just as good to replace, but it's them working a different dynamic, isn't it? And then everybody else changes a little bit. And I think that was, whereas previous tournaments, we've always changed. So there's been a bit more consistency. We were so consistent with that 11 in the Euros, but then you can't do that forever.
Yeah. And the amount of games now. Do you reckon that we're close to kind of getting back to that kind of 11 that Serena knows? Because what are we, like 7 months out? 8 months out?
I don't think so. I think
from the Euros.
I think because we've like what's different now is like we prepared for the Euros with friendlies. Yeah. As well, so it was like time to we made change. Like Leo was holding mid.
Yeah, I remember.
Right until the tournament, Fran played right wing in like the February.
Couple of the games.
Yeah, like we tried a couple of new things because we could.
Yeah.
But now we have the Nations League, and Nations League affects your rankings, that affects your drawing tournament. So like, it's not as easy as we can just keep trying new players, and then we've got obviously friendlies at a high level. So there's such a fine balance. It's so different. I think that's the thing that's changed a lot, and it's how do you make that work?
So question, can we win the Euros next summer?
Yeah, we can.
You sure?
Yeah.
All right, so I'll put my money on us.
Yeah.
I'll take your word. Right, Luce, you've studied ACL injuries at university as part of a project ACL. I just wanted to go back to 2022 and show you this clip. Be ready.
Oh God.
I want to know how I didn't do my ACL in this.
You're so strong.
Have a watch. Must be with that proprioception stuff I did or didn't do. Do you know how embarrassed I was falling in a packed Wembley Stadium? You lot are Euro champions. I wasn't.
So,
and you embarrassed me. I was on my arse and nearly did an ACL. This actually went viral, so I got a little bit famous from that clip. But honest to God, how did I do my ACL in that?
Strong.
Yeah, then proprioception. But
all that gym work you did.
I was called the ghost in the gym because I'd be in and out. But it must have worked because honestly, I don't know how I didn't. So what do you think the main reasoning are? And I heard you come out because people were talking about boots. And I'm actually so glad that we had somebody that was like, mate, it's not the boots. It's not the boots. It's not that we're wearing boys' boots because, mate, we grew up playing in kids, if you want to call them boys' boots.
Exactly. So that's the thing.
It's like,
I get the boot argument as in like everyone's got different feet, but equally like there's some people's like some females' feet are the same as men's, and men's it's not. There's not.
Some of them big giant toes and all
that. There's
that.
not like a. Is there like a gender foot? Like I don't think that exists.
No, there's not. My brother's got a small foot. I think he's only a 6 as well.
Yeah, like I've got like wider feet, whereas like other people, like Ella Toon's got long. She's
skinny feet.
She's got long skinny feet. She hates it because everyone says she's got big feet. But like, yeah, I don't know. I think that was just like easy clickbait, like people just pointing fingers everywhere and just saying,
"Oh, this got more sales, didn't it, for women's boots?"
Yeah,
right?
like, "Oh, there isn't this for women. There isn't this for women." And I'm like, I get that, but and it's nice that people are trying to find a solution, but you can't equally as well with ACLs. It's not just one thing. So everyone went, "Oh, change the boots." Then one person did their ACL wearing those boots. Boots are the problem. Well, they're not because they might actually still be good. Whatever.
Why do you think there is so many then in the women's game?
Because our muscles aren't as strong. Our ACLs are actually smaller than men's ACLs. Like the actual, that goes through your knee. Yeah. Like it's smaller. Like obviously our joints and muscles and stuff are smaller than men's, so they are smaller.
So my thing was when people ask me, because mate, I mean I know that because you done knee injuries. Like I'm talking before he's even professional, right? But when the women's game turned professional, I was like, it's only going to be a matter of time before we have X amount of ACLs because you can't go from being an amateur footballer to then being on a full-time program, which was mirrored off the men's because that's all they knew at the time. So you're now doing a program that is designed for men, male athletes and whatever, and now you're getting the women to do it at speeds that are not impossible, but over time may be possible. But at the time where
you need to be trained from a young age.
My point, right?
You need to be trained here and go. Whereas we've been like even me.
We've got one or two training a week.
Yeah,
but even up until what 20? I don't know what time. I mean, even at Liverpool, he was only training 3 times a week.
Yeah, the load and intensities just went like that. Yeah. With players who like
were just
instead of kids now, younger players now who train and get that from
a younger age.
Beginning. I do think that's like change of environments, the load. But I think with the load as well, like, there's an argument for like the schedule. And don't get me wrong, the schedule, it's a mess more than like you've got a game here.
You have loads of games.
Yeah, like it's a lot, and I think everyone has responsibility within that as well. Like players equally need to look after their own bodies.
That's what I was going to say. In between, I don't know, days off and stuff like that.
Yeah,
especially where the game's gone. Like with all these brand sponsors and stuff like that.
It's not the same anymore.
It's all right if you live in London, where all the branded deals are.
But then is it because you've got to
no, I know,
travel?
I know, but I'm saying when I was in Liverpool or Manchester or whatever, and you're travelling down to London on your day off to do an appearance that's all day to then go back up to train the next day, it's not ideal, right? But also you don't want to lose an opportunity for somebody to be able to do that, especially in a women's game. Yeah, which is crazy, right?
But I think that there's the other clubs getting up to speed with looking after the players. I don't think any club is, to be honest with you. Any club in the world. Yeah. Like I'm not just saying England, like Barca, Lyon, no one. People do it well, but it's like the structures are like this compared to the men's structures, 100%. So you can't even compare how many games they played to us because we played way less than them, but our whole structure around it is way less than theirs as well. So of course players are more tired, not as strong. Our gym programs are based off of how men have done their gym programs.
That's why I used to hate it.
Yeah, everything is based off of that. So
what's the solution then for, I don't know, maybe prevent? I'm saying prevent. You can't prevent, but
you can just you can reduce the risks. I think some of them are already out there, like how you train, intensity of training, like your biomechanics as a player, like rest and recovery is a huge thing. Like the strength in your legs is a huge thing. Like that's what like keeps your knees stronger. Like that's why my legs are so strong, because I've had to, because my knees have been like a mess.
Your knees have been a mess. I was going
to say. So I've had to be strong. Like I've known that from a young age that's like a key thing. Yeah. You're not going to get rid of it, but you can lower the risk of it happening. Environmental changes, like you go from training with England or any national team to then your club who train less or more or harder or faster, or like changes is also like a big thing.
Is there much of a change at Chelsea in terms of the intensity there to then England? Or would you say at like the top teams, the intensity is probably...
I think Chelsea have got a good intensity. I think that's probably like what we would like hold our hat on, like when it comes to games and stuff, is that we can, no matter how we're
Mate, this is a different Chelsea team though. I feel like, I know people, like I actually feel watching this team is like, I can't say better. I was having this on my podcast last week with Neat. I was like, is this the best Chelsea team you've seen? Because I'm like... Because it just looks different. Like I know that they won a hell of a lot under Emma. Like and don't get me wrong, Sonia's inherited an unbelievable Chelsea team, but it just seems to be something different about.
Yeah, I mean she's changed it. Yeah, like I think that's the thing. Like
I remember actually LJ was saying in the summer about how much running you lot were doing.
In the summer.
Yeah.
Well, I think Emma's philosophy was like rest because to get the best out of them, and I think that got them to a certain point, and then when you had to like tip the next edge, that was where Chelsea maybe fell short. Like they always had the quality and they did have the intensity and they could beat those teams. But when it came to it, it was like constantly dipping and going like that wasn't quite working. Maybe I don't know. I never played under Emma, so I don't know what that was like. But I do feel like playing for them compared to when I was playing against Chelsea is like a difference. Even like we played City the other day, we played like tactical chess with them.
Mate, I love that. That was one of my favourite
tactical chess.
Yeah, it was good.
I did, like the first half we were like...
Yeah, they couldn't offer
it. Yeah,
it was
I remember after you scored the first goal, I said to the centre-back, I said, we're literally playing chess in this game. I'm just waiting to do the checkmate.
Luis, you're one of them though, in games, you're thinking about all other things. Like, you're like...
My head's like everywhere on it. Like, I was thinking about every single thing.
Yeah, it's crazy. No, that game was like, I think one of the best WSL games tactically that I've watched.
It was like
just watching it, I'm saying somebody that like...
We were like, come on mate, like...
Fans
that's what I mean.
Goals
make
and
your next
I'm
move.
like, nah. I mean, the way that like you lot set up your press and whatever, like I loved it.
And with the right players, like we had our fittest player, Maika Hamano is like our fittest player, but she's in the 10. Yeah. The girl she'll just run after Yuki all day.
She was good. Like, Hasegawa didn't fancy it. She just completely thinking. I mean, Ramirez though, is she actually that strong? Because I mean, do you avoid marking her in training?
That Vika captain, she literally blew her off the pitch once. Like went out, she just went over there. And we were just like, don't do that. Millie and her are like tussling.
What are they like?
tussling. Yeah.
Are they? You know what?
I think it brings out the best in Millie though, because she's finally got someone to
kind of rough her up.
Yeah,
a little
Khadijah
bit.
was all the centre halves, to be fair.
Mate, Khadijah started so well this year as well. Flipping hell, gutted.
But again, that's the
because
thing.
Because not that she dipped, but maybe was allowed to. Maybe the
But I think under
intensity.
Emma, she never had she wasn't really the starting centre back, and then she got so much consistency now. But again, that's the thing.
She
like,
started so well.
it's probably the most amount of games that she started for such a long time, because she was fit and healthy, and then
But Luce, I could talk about you playing and kind of all of what you've achieved in the game. But if I was to ask you, what do you think in the next 5 years where you could see the women's game being, or where you'd like it to be?
I think from experience that I've had, like in clubs, I think for the clubs to, see the women's team as not an equal in terms of like, I think an equal as in they want just as much success for them and really show that in the way that they approach it. I think that's the two things I've noticed when I was at Barca and at Lyon. I literally, like, Laporta was there every other day. Like, he would come up to me and be like, "Oh, we're speaking Spanish or English today?" Like, he would literally know me. Then I was at Lyon with Olas, like, he'd be on the plane with us going to all the Champions League games, like, and, "Oh, Lucy, how's your mum? How's your sister? She's still doing athletics." Not that it matters.
Not
that they're interested, but it just shows
they
that
they know
the team
and
they actually have bought into the team and their success and what the team needs to succeed. Okay, sometimes it might not be perfect and it's not always possible to have everything, but they really were invested in those teams. And I think sometimes we miss that in England, that the teams are there, but
they're just there, aren't they?
They're there, but are they really being listened to? Like, are we fighting to get them to the next level? Like, I think that's probably, again, what Emma Hayes had really good at Chelsea, is that she fought her way into, places at Chelsea that maybe people weren't before, and asked questions and asked for more and kept building Chelsea and driving them. Yeah. I think that's what is a huge thing in women's football. Yeah, we can shout and scream till we're blue in the face, but if no one's listening and taking note and caring and higher 100%. Up, then how is it going to change? How is it going to move forward?
You've obviously played for City and Chelsea, and obviously I know City was quite a while ago, but in terms of who's then the closest to kind of having that real connection with the club to kind of then build that? And how do we get other teams to kind of see that as a success and where the game needs to go in order for it to improve?
Yeah, I mean, I was at City a while ago, but I know I didn't feel like that when I was there.
Does it feel like that now? It's heard, like if you hear people talking about it, but it's more the fact that
I think Steph,
as in training and everything together.
I think Steph had a good relationship, but I don't know if that was just more
just because she was captain.
Yeah, and Steph was in there, and Steph's really good at that. Yeah. Rather than they really bought into the team.
The women,
whereas, like, I think at Chelsea, like, I wouldn't say Millie has that, but I think Sonia does. Yeah. Like, I know when I was signing, like, Sonia was like, "Yeah, we're speaking to the board." Mm-hmm. It wasn't like, "Oh, it's just the women's team." It's like, I can go and speak to them. Like, that's fine. Yeah.
So the board kind of oversee both then. So it's not kind of
I'm not sure, but I know that she's not afraid and can do that. But I don't know how much that is at other clubs. But I think that's such an important thing to have that connection, because ultimately, like, you are a women's team, but you are under that whole badge, and that badge represents
That's the problem,
something.
isn't it? That's
it's
the
a good
problem.
and a bad thing. Yeah.
You're under that umbrella of this is us as a club, but then actually, how much of the club do we matter to? Yeah. Like, you look at the likes of West Ham. I don't even think they're even too bothered about their women's team. Like, Everton, from when we were at where we were there to where they're probably at now. Like, Aston Villa look like they're a bit more connected, but there's so many teams that are in the league that
and you have the badge and you're there, but
you're not
you
there.
really have the.
You might train at the men's training ground. Okay,
does
that's
that really
great,
matter?
but does that do anything? Like,
it's just a pitch at the end of the day. Like, I always said that, like, the facilities that I had at Barca and Lyon as well, Chelsea and City were both way better. Yeah. Way better. But it didn't matter because we had what we needed. Yeah. We had the access that we needed, and we had the support that we needed. It wasn't like the flashiest gym equipment. It was enough for what you needed to win, like, the Champions League. Like, it was. Sometimes we get too drawn in on what it looks like and how it's like painted. And actually, do you have access to everything that you need? Like,
but that's half the problem. I know when I went to Arsenal, they kind of were like, "Oh yeah, we've got this. We're going to be doing X, Y, and Z." I mean, mate, we'd have to wait till 5 o'clock sometimes to get in the gym because the men were in there. One guy was doing a recovery, one player. It's like, it was absolutely crazy.
I think when those things start to change, I think that'll be a big change.
Massive change.
Massive change.
What about your thoughts on RTC's academies? They still train twice a week. How are we going to get them ready when they come to 16, 17 if they're still
To
only
be
training
doing
twice a week? Because they're not doing enough, and that's the problem. So the
Yeah.
problem is they're not doing enough, and then they come 17 and they try and join a senior environment way off of it because obviously the game's moved on. So now our senior...
There's a gap.
Think back to when we come into the game. The senior players were probably training, I don't know, probably less than us because we probably did a lot of things in school, for example, or college or whatever. So we were probably doing a little bit more sports. Whereas they were working and trying to manage work and training. Now, our senior players are full-time. So how are the kids going to bridge that gap if they're only training twice a week?
If they're not keeping up when that level's
so how do
getting
we?
higher and higher.
Where does that money? Is that a club thing that they need more investment? Is it an FA thing? Like, where do you think the issues lie in terms of that and that being financed?
Yeah, well,
because the boys get driven. They get picked up in a minibus and taken to these venues.
Yeah, because I think the boys is driven by the academies, that's by the clubs, because they see the value in developing their own players. I don't think the women's game's at a place where they see as much value in developing the players, because there isn't as much value in the women's game, like in terms of how much players cost and especially when your overhead is Chelsea or a City club. Developing a women's player isn't really that valuable because that's in the women's game. Do you know what I mean? Whereas in the men's game, like, you develop an academy player, you could sell them for millions.
Yeah,
you
Cole Palmer, 45 million.
You wouldn't
at
be selling...
the time, that felt like crazy deal to pay 45 million at the time for Cole Palmer, who hadn't played much for City. I mean, it's a bargain.
But you wouldn't even pay 45 million for the best player in the world in women's football. Like, do you know what I mean?
Do you think we'll get our first £1 million player?
Yeah.
How close are we to that?
Any
day now?
Yeah.
This January coming?
Next
transfer window?
Next transfer window, probably.
You reckon?
Yeah. I know that, that's what teams are offering for some players. They've just...
Was that rumour, wasn't it, about Kira?
Yeah, I don't know how much it was, but I'm assuming,
who's going to be the first one, eh? That would be an interesting one. But Luce, talk to me then, because obviously you mentioned in a recent interview about players not being able to retire without having to go into work based off the salary they're on now. Is that, I mean, I'm not putting you in that bracket because I know you're smart, I know you'd have invested here, there and everywhere, and you're pretty neat when you retire. But is that something that representatives, agents need to help players with at a younger age? Is the doing college courses or whatever whilst playing something that needs to be pushed a little bit more, so there's something that you're prepared for after football? Like, what do you think can happen in order to kind of help that, or management in terms of money management, financial management?
Yeah, I mean, I think a little bit of everything. I think I'm not sitting there saying everybody should be able to retire. Like, that's not where the game is at.
But what I'm saying, we should at least be in a position, because as you say, you retire. Like, I was lucky that I fell into what I did, because I was thinking, did I have enough money to kind of keep me for a year where you're trying to figure out what you want to do? I probably didn't. But it's like, you're right. But I don't think there's ever that kind of, well, there wasn't when I played. I'm trying to get to the point. Do those discussions, are they had now? Do people think about those things? Yeah,
I think so. But I think also, like, it's easy to get carried away in, like, the moment. And obviously you've got all these people dragging you this way and that way. And they want to do this with you and they want to go that place with you. So I get it from that point of view. And at the end of the day, if people want to just do whatever they want and at the end of their career, they're happy to go and work, like, that's your prerogative as well. I do think that's where the importance of the education, the coaching, or having
something,
an interest, an interest that, you know, can give you an income if it was necessary, and if that is where you see your lifestyle going, then go for it. I equally know that I've done all of it. Like, I've kind of ticked all the boxes. A bit unnecessary, but like, I've got the education and stuff to do jobs, but I've equally looked after myself well enough that I'm not panicking and things. Yeah.
So do you think that in terms of, say, for example, if it is an education thing, do you think it's something that representatives should look into, or clubs? Who should kind of be held responsible to kind of encourage, help, guide players?
I think all of them, really. I think players also need to pay more of an interest into it. It's something that, like, I think all the girls at England and at Chelsea actually probably get so annoyed with me, because I try and make them all learn another language. Yeah,
do you know what? I'd love to learn Spanish.
Just
so
because
if you've got any Spanish classes, bring me in.
If they haven't got an interest, and some of them are like, oh, well, you know, it's hard to fit university, like, I don't know, geography. We've got a player at Chelsea who loves geography. Yeah. But she's like, I don't know how to fit that in because it doesn't work around football. And I was like, well, learn a language then. Yeah. So I just keep trying to get them to do something, because it might be valuable for you later. You never know. But I do think there's that balance of things. But yeah, I think the offer could be put out more probably from...
Yeah, they've been talking about it for years. That's my only thing, is that when we was amateur, they were talking about dual careers in kind of doing your education alongside being paid a little bit of money. But now you're full-time, I'm assuming getting obviously more money. There will be time. You don't have to work another job and try and balance work and training because it's there.
Yeah.
There's evening courses or whatever that should be maybe encouraged. But I mean, we'll see if it comes into the game. But Lucy, if you was to retire tomorrow, where do you see yourself in terms of what kind of avenue? You said you feel like you can have a hand in helping FIFA kind of
maybe I'll
in
just
that part of the game, apart from going on your yachts and doing whatever.
I go on the beach.
Was it you said you wanted to do something with FIFA? You feel like you could have a big part in kind of helping? Talk a little bit about that.
I just that I've always been in like a leadership role at England, for example. Yeah. So I've always been involved in the conversations with the FA with terms of the league, contracts, like commercial, investing in the game. I've been involved in those conversations for the last
forever.
Yeah,
certainly when you're playing a ball
early. As long as Steph's pretty much been the captain, I was put into that kind of environment where, from I guess most of Steph's captaincy, I was like the one behind her, fighting as well. Let's go.
No, I remember because I remember when you came back from Lyon and we was at that long table, we was talking about money and everything, and it's it's cringy because obviously what you need or what I need or what that player needs is completely different, and it's probably something that between all of us probably isn't the most comfortable conversation to have. And I remember you'd be like, oh, we should play for England for free. We're playing for our country, none of us should be playing for England. And then on the other hand, no, it's true, and I get that if you're on a contract at your club. But at the time, there was people that weren't even paying. I mean, we was on $8,000 at Liverpool. $8,000. We had people who were not even in the England squad on more than us.
Yeah.
So it's crazy to think so what I'm saying is that England actually at that time was helpful in terms of playing for England and them giving you a full-time program. But now, in terms of everybody being full-time and it's your job, England should be an honour. It should be I get it. And then competitions maybe bonus, but in terms of qualifying and stuff like that, or every camp. But actually, it's got even bigger and better,
the world's a different place now.
So they didn't listen to you.
No. But I've always been in... I've just... I like to argue, not argue. I like to... If there's something to be said, I'm not scared to say it. Maybe it's put me in difficult positions sometimes, but I don't mind putting myself in there because I'm confident in my football. And then off the pitch, if I need to say something because I think that's the right thing to do for the team, I'll do that. And I've done that. I worked at FIFA Pro. I'm on the PFA board now. I've been in conversations with FIFA before, with UEFA before. And I always notice when I'm in these things, there isn't as many women, not that there needs to be the equal amount, but representing the game even. Is there as many people representing the women's game?
Who do you see in kind of these FIFA, UEFA? They've got male ambassadors. I don't see... They have female legends, but they don't have ambassadors that kind of...
And to a point, I get it because there are more, take the Premier League. There's more Premier League teams than WSL teams. Yeah. So, of course, if you were to do a stratified sample of it, there would be more. But there's also that argument where, because they don't have a female representative... Then you need more.
And they don't have that. In terms of knowing where the game's at, what it needs and all of those type of things, they're just second guessing, or they're going, oh, well, the men had this 10 years ago, let's give them it now. So... Do you know what I mean? If they had somebody that's actually we don't need that money for that because actually this is an area that actually is really strong.
And for women's football, we don't need that.
Yeah, we don't need that because it's not going to benefit us now. Exactly. But they don't have a voice that's there to kind of...
Exactly.
So that's where you're taking up in 10 years' time.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll make your own
I said that I was going to be head of FIFA, but it was more just...
Mate, why can't you be?
I mean, I could be. I just think it's a lot of work to get there, but I could do that.
That challenge, we're talking Lucy Bronze, tough competitor.
If I say it, then I have to do it. But I just think
that's why she doesn't want to say it, guys, because she will have to do it.
I just think there's I know that I've put myself in a very good position as a player and got myself in very good places and had my voice listened to because of what I've achieved as a player. Also, I am educated. I have been to school. I have done all those things. I've earned a place where I think I could go and help make a difference. I don't think I deserve 100%. To be there because I'm a player that's played 100 times. Yeah, but you
still have all those experiences, the work you've done with it and everything else.
And then experience on boards, then having done education, I'm trying to make my world as like open as possible,
Yeah.
so that if I have an opportunity to go, it's like I'm there for the right reason, and people know that because they know that I'm just trying to help. Like,
Yeah.
I would play for England for free. Like,
I know you would.
I've always
I know you said
that.
it for yeah.
I've been there for 15 years,
Yeah.
and I've always said that. Like, I just love football. Like, I love playing, and I want it to be in a better place. And sometimes I just need someone to stand up and say the thing that nobody else wants to say. Yeah.
True. Honestly, I could sit here for ages, and I ended up finding myself going completely off task, as expected. I don't know how to stay on track. But before you go, and before I do your best five-a-side team, which I'm really intrigued because you played with some unbelievable players and some quick fire, what one piece of advice would you give kind of the next generation of players coming through to kind of help them on their journey?
I always say hard work hard. I think especially now, like, there are so many more players wanting to play. Like, what's going to make you stand out? Because, and yeah, you might say everyone can work hard, but you can always work harder than the person next to you. I think it's the mantra that I've lived my career by is doing more, trying harder, being the best. And if you fall short, like, at least you've tried your hardest.
Yeah. Good advice.
Yeah.
Good advice.
I live by that.
Could have told me that when I was younger.
You would have listened.
I might have to you. I might have. I listened to you in 2015. I had fun. I enjoyed the 2015 World Cup. But Luce, I remember when you played at Lyon and you was talking about Marajan, and you was like, she's the best player I've ever played with.
Do I still think that?
Having played with Bompastor, who's the current best player, and you played with Mateus, who was the previous best.
Still think Marajan.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you haven't changed your opinion.
No, I have not changed. I think Marajan's a player that...
She was unbelievable, man. Poke the bear. Remember the poke the bear?
What silly. It was funny because a couple of years later we played Germany, and the analysis was like...
Poke.
No, it was the opposite. She's past it. She's not as good. She flicked it over 3 people's heads.
I wasn't in the squad then, because I was going to say,
Jill
that was from 2019.
And I think I maybe just left Lyon. I was there. And I was like, the footage they'd got, I was thinking, you've got that on the worst pitch in France of her, like, not making a pass. I was thinking, you've got this wrong. No, at Wembley, she flicked it over, like, Kira and Jill's head as well. Got it the other side of them. And the two of them were like, I can't believe they said that. I said, I told you she's not, like, you don't lose that.
I mean, as a player, I've always said that. When people say the toughest opponent, I'm like, Marajan by a country mile.
The smartest, the most technical.
Yeah.
I think physically, obviously, her attributes weren't there, as in, like, fitness and speed, but she made up for it. And like, I think me and her were like this because
I can imagine.
I was crazy and athletic and win, and she was like, calm down.
Makes for a good relationship there. So go on, Luce. I'm intrigued to hear your five-a-side team with the best players you play with, mate.
The best players
you've played with some players, so
for five-a-side that I've played with.
Yeah, because you played with some flipping ballers. So
Marajan.
Yeah.
Lessemer.
Oh, how do we forget her? She don't even get...
Most underrated player ever.
Mate.
Ever.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how she's not beaten, like...
She got dropped from this French team for a while as well, didn't she? It was like...
I don't even know if she'd been nominated for a Ballon d'Or. And there was one year 8 of us got nominated and she didn't. And I honestly think it was the year Ada won. And I think one of the people who would have pushed Ada to win it, which should have been Lessemer, Marajan and Hegerberg. And Lessemer wasn't even on it. She used to score bicycle kicks in training.
She's crazy.
Unbelievable.
She's a crazy player.
Lessemer, 100%.
Remember the 2015 World Cup when we had to mark her?
Crazy.
She scored the goal.
Yeah.
Game plan's finished after 10 minutes.
I think she has to be the most underrated women's footballer ever.
Yeah, she's good, man.
Go
on, we got 2 good ones there. 3 more.
The thing is, I really love Alexia, but I know I didn't play with her at her absolute best. But when I see things that she does, I'm like... Oh.
Who's better, her or Bompastor?
So different.
I just like Bompastor on the eye.
I think Bompastor, I think she probably covers more all round of the game, like, because she's crazy. She's so crazy competitive.
Does she get in your 5?
Yeah.
So both of them?
Oh.
You're not leaving yourself, but you played with Hegerberg as well, right? You played with...
Players, I know.
Right,
Alexia is not going to get in it purely off the fact that
You didn't play with her at her best.
The first season at Barca, she was coming back from her ACL, and then we didn't play as much together. Although I absolutely love her, I love playing with her. Yeah, I never got to play with her at her absolute best, and she'd say the same about me. We've got like a super best friend knee relationship. So we'll have to put Bon Matty in there then. I'm
trying to think. You got Graham Hansen. Does she get in there?
I think there's other players I could put you in there.
Just because I'm clever, not because of everything else.
Your ability. Because like Kelly, I never played with Kelly at her best either.
Yeah.
This is a big underrated one. Amel Majri at Lyon. She was unbelievable.
Was she good? Yeah. She still was good. She was the one that had the baby. What was her position, Luce?
I think she's the best left back in the world, but she hits.
She doesn't like it, does she? That's what I mean. It's like I always think like, yeah, I would say that, like in terms of left back, she's never been replaced.
Wendy Renard, top player.
I was thinking you'd have put her in there. I actually thought you was going to put Renard in.
There's too many.
Come on, I need 5, quick.
My best thing was at Lyon, so I have so much love for them, like Lyon girls. So that's why I sometimes think, am I a little bit biased? I'm not. I know I'm not with Marijan.
Marijan was just, I always, in interviews, people's toughest player, it's like, mate.
But yeah, there's like Hansen, like Kira, Patry, they're so talented.
Come on, I need 5, please. We haven't got all day.
Maro, Lissamer, Aitana, Bon Matty.
You just said
Wendy.
Margie.
I've put Wendy in there.
Not the left back. What's her name? Is that how you say it? Majri, that's it.
She's getting bummed out now for Wendy. And
getting bummed out.
maybe Kira.
Okay. There's our 5. Done. Deal.
Are they like all midfielders? No, not
matter.
apart from Wendy.
Don't matter. Right, Luce, quick fire. Funniest teammate?
Ella Toon.
Toody? Oh yeah, I can imagine on a ACL podcast. Funniest football memory?
Funniest football memory? Probably my very first Euros in Sweden with Jordan.
Oh yeah.
We snuck out the hotel, went to a water park.
Did you? How did I not know that? I know you don't just be
snuck out. No one knows that.
I absolutely love. I remember you used to go along that figure.
Used to make drinks in the change room.
Oh, mate.
We had nothing else to do.
I can't believe you went to a water park. That's an exclusive, guys. Winning the Champions League or the Euros?
The Euros.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
Red card or score an own goal? Depends if your team's winning.
Red card.
Bicycle kick or score from the halfway line? Bicycle kick all day. If you could learn another language, what would it be? You already know French, Spanish,
I would learn
English.
Portuguese better.
Okay, your own language better.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Who's the best player you've played with? I'm expecting you to say Marijan. Best player you've played against?
Oh, Marta.
Okay. She's been the toughest? Toughest?
No, not toughest, best.
But just the best one. Okay, cool. Well, Lucy, thank you for joining me on Fara Meets. That's it from us, guys. If you like, I think it's like, comment, subscribe, what's all the nonsense they say? Something like that. And a retweet from Lucy will get us even more listeners.